This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Santa Cruz County. We are on our roadshow. It continues up and down the state. And we are joined by Zach Friend. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors here in Santa Cruz County. And it's hard to deny that Santa Cruz County is starting to be severely impacted by traffic.
That is a reality.
It is a reality. And I know that counties are a bit frustrated with how transportation is funded throughout the state. Talk to me about how you're looking at that issue as a member of the Board of Supervisors.
Well, I grew up in Southern California, so I'm
where?
in San Diego.
Okay,
so I'm well
terrific,
aware of traffic as a social justice issue, an economic development issue, as a lifestyle issue, where you ended up adjusting how long it would take for you to get to your kid's baseball game just based on what time of day it is. That exact kind of world is starting to play out within Santa Cruz County, in the sense that traffic itself has become such a major issue that people are altering their life decisions based on it. The Board of Supervisors is looking at it in a lot of ways that I think a number of organizations and governmental entities throughout the state are, where we're looking at how do you fund it to actually meet the needs locally and also reflect the values locally. It isn't just simply about one solution, but how do you provide a holistic look toward it?
So let's talk about funding, because the county is an arm of the state of California.
Right.
And a lot of the funding for counties for transportation come through Sacramento, and much of that funding comes through a gas tax. And you know that the gas tax has not been increased in 20 years. We're driving more fuel efficient vehicles. We have inflation. We have gas prices dropping. The money just is not going far enough.
So you're running for office?
I was going to say, my wife would kill me.
I know, well, thanks for outlining the problem that we're
Exactly.
faced with, right? Which is the fact that one element of that is good. More fuel efficient vehicles, cleaner burning fuels, people are driving less, electric vehicles, et cetera. However, people are still reliant on automobiles as a primary form of transportation. We have a significant infrastructure crisis that neither the state nor the federal government's been investing in. And so we've recognized at the local level, as so many communities throughout the state have, that we need to invest here, either by passing our own local tax or working with the state legislators in order to do something that can help be reflected back to the local level.
So let's talk about that, because you know the special session for transportation allegedly is still ongoing in Sacramento, but not much happened when it was called over the summer. And I understand that the board is looking at putting a measure on the ballot here in Santa Cruz County to increase the sales tax, I think it's by 0.5 cent, to fund local transportation projects. So talk to us about those two parallel paths.
Well, there's a reality that the state funding mechanisms are generally tied to a local match. And so if you don't have a local match, how do you actually provide for this? So we don't have a local dedicated sales tax toward transportation needs. We do for Metro, which is a bus service. We don't for any other need locally. And so the ability to even tap into the state money, should they actually take action in this special section, we're hopeful. We have to be hopeful,
I know, you have to.
I mean, look, the federal government for the first time in 10 years actually passed some sort of a budget and something associated with transportation.
And will money flow down to a county from the feds? It's hard to even imagine how that would happen.
A lot of that is highway-based money. It doesn't appear that much money from the FAST Act will actually be realized here locally. Maybe a little bit on the Metro bus transportation, but not really anything else. What we expect is to either provide money locally or to be able to leverage the local money on whatever the state ends up doing, and that's what we're looking to do.
So, but your voters need to be generous. They need to vote in favor of this initiative in November by 2/3. I think 10 years ago, they voted like 40% in favor of a sales tax increase. So,
well, there are a lot of lessons learned from that time. I mean, the distribution of where the money was going to was not a reflective of the overall value set, I think, of the community. And I think that the last 10 years' time was spent actually reflecting on what should that distribution look like. And what this does is focus not just on the highway, but on local roads, on alternative transportation, on bike paths, et cetera, which really does provide that reflection.
So are you feeling as if this is the year where it will happen here in Santa Cruz County, that we will see the voters say, we're going to invest in our roads by taxing ourselves?
2/3 is a very high threshold. It's just a high threshold, and it doesn't take very much opposition to kill it. But we really need to do something. I mean, you cannot drive the roads here and not say something needs to be, without saying something needs to be done.
We also think about Santa Cruz County, which, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago was a vibrant county, wasn't necessarily known for exorbitant housing prices.
Yeah.
Boy, has that changed. I mean, Santa Cruz County, as I understand it, for a county of its size, has amongst the most expensive real estate in the nation.
That is correct.
And so the challenge becomes is we have a housing crisis overall. Forget the homeless issue for a second.
Right.
We have a housing crisis in California. We're not building enough homes. And it's a particular crisis on the coast. and we're on the coast right now.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what the county can do to address its housing crisis.
I think the first thing that needs to happen is the actual discussion about home development needs to change. There's so much of a coastal California discussion of growth, and it's a pejorative term.
It is.
And I respect that. I mean, I respect that the environmental beauty. I don't consider that to be mutually exclusive of providing for a housing now. Because we locally, look, we have not built really anything within the urban corridors of this county over the last 30 years.
I gotta ask you about that perceived contradiction between environmentalism and even slow growth. I mean, is it such a bad thing to build homes on or near the coast? I mean, it's blasphemy for some.
I think that what you can concentrate instead, as opposed to coastal development per se, are along urban transportation corridors. I think that a lot of coastal communities in California are realizing that smaller units above commercial on transportation corridors, mixed use, have a lot of tangential benefits. They improve the transportation flow, people can live, work, et cetera, and they're less expensive by design. We're talking 400, 500, 600 square foot starter places or downsizing for baby boomers. We don't even have that housing stock as an option locally.
And so with the economy on the upswing and with housing prices, are they starting to creep up nicely or are they getting inflated?
Oh,
They're creeping up too quickly again?
I mean, I'll ask a very simple question for anybody that owns a home that's watching this.
Right.
Could you afford your own home today if you had to buy it?
No,
the answer is no.
So
Look, I couldn't afford mine. I bought it 2 years ago, and that's the reality that's going up throughout the state of California.
But in Santa Cruz, it's particularly acute.
It's particularly bad.
So where are the developers on this? Because in the end, you need partners.
You do. I mean, the county doesn't actually build housing, right? We facilitate an environment for it. I think the developers are probably waiting to see that we actually provide an environment that maybe incents some sense of development within the urban corridor. And I'll say that this Board of Supervisors has done more over the last couple of years to change that perception than has been done in the last 30 years. And that's a significant shift.
What about the question of affordable housing? And I do mean that term literally, not just can we afford it, but housing for those that are less economically advantaged.
Well, I mean, affordable housing is relative, to be quite frankly. In California, you have something that can be deed restricted that's very specific for income requirements, and we do have percentage components here in Santa Cruz County that says that all new developments shall have, right? But on top of that, though, it's also the type of housing you build where the actual house itself, based on size and location, can actually be less expensive for either a starter or downsizing home, which frees up single-family stock for other people.
So where is the county going? Are they looking towards what I'll call the traditional definition, what you described the former, or are you looking towards the latter, which is kind of a non-traditional definition?
It's actually both. I mean, so we're encouraging affordable housing development under a traditional model that has a percentage guarantee. But secondly, we're encouraging a new kind of development away from the single-family home, more toward this mixed use within urban corridors to allow for people an opportunity.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about homelessness, because it is an issue throughout the state, and California is becoming ground zero for the homeless crisis. How do we see it playing out here in Santa Cruz County?
Look, Santa Cruz County has a problem that's way disproportionate to its population here. We've had significant strides made on veterans homelessness, and a lot of that is due to what the federal government has done on this funding. But the number one issue of actually being able to house people that are homeless, housing. We actually don't even have the rooms, the Section 8 voucher, we don't even have the stock. Even if you have a willingness or a funding, you actually don't have the stock, which shows that we have to provide the stock.
What about the homeless in this community? Are they service compliant, service resistant? Are they willing to participate?
I mean, I think there's a mixture in any kind of situation, but in my encounters, specifically dealing with the homeless vets issue, people want a home. They want an opportunity. Without a roof over their head, there's a lot of other things they can't do, and that's step one.
His name is Zach Friend. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Santa Cruz County. He's a new father, by the way. Congratulations.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
We are in Santa Cruz County today on our roadshow. This is Charter Local Edition. Check it out.